Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Vanucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
We do. I forgot to make another cup, so.
Well, it's one of my most exciting things about being in Vancouver for the month is all the different places that do good coffee. So I'm excited about that.
Should be good.
One of the things I miss for sure.
Yeah, what the problem in this city, I mean, for people like me, is that we have as many shitty coffee shops as we have good. This city has a tendency to really liking highly acidic bullshit Canadian coffee, which I can't drink. I can't drink it. I really can't. There's so many places I cannot have an espresso in this city. So many places.
That makes sense. I like trying a little bit of everything, and then I know it's kind of like how I don't know if people are like me if they drink beer and they go back to just good old fashioned Coors Light kind of thing. But I know when the brewery phase really hit Vancouver when I was living here, I can't handle IPAs and stuff like that. And it just was like the thing that everyone did. And it was like, I love it. I know. I love the idea of it. I just can't drink IPA beer.
I'm with you. And
Yeah.
I like wheat beers. I like the concept of a lot of things, but you know what? Maybe it's sad and pathetic, but you know, a good old fashioned lager, I'm okay with.
Yep. Yeah. I had like Sapporo just in the fridge, and I was like, "This is good. This is all I need. I'm happy with this."
You know, there's so many. I know they're boring. A Peroni, you know, Sapporo, Qingdao, like all these. Yeah, I mean they're humdrum, but they're just really easy drinking beers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need. Again, it's like anything. You can have a nice, you know.
Well, it's like a coffee. I got a little pour over this morning because I like sometimes it's nice to have something that's complex and you got to take your time with it and you get to enjoy it and you appreciate the time that got put in and then as you're waiting for it, you're watching the lineup get longer and longer as the barista is trying to desperately to finish your pour over so she can get to everyone else's coffee. And I feel, and I'm like, but you know, I appreciate it, but sometimes you just want a Sapporo or a whatever.
I totally get it. Totally get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes just overcomplicate things. Anyway, Phil, you're going to say something. Oh, we lost Phil.
He's muted. He's probably walking up to his house.
Might be walking up to the house.
I am I'm home and I'm switching over to my computer so I can see you guys and you guys can see me.
Yeah, it's already better though. At least it's already not choppy.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Which is much better. So you're in town, you said, for the month?
Yeah, we're here for the month for the off season, and then we're heading back because the bike park, Silver Star Bike Park, is opening end of June-ish. We'll see. Maybe they open a little bit early, but yeah, we're heading back when the bike park opens, and then figure out in the fall what we want to do. Because usually there's a couple bonus weekends in September before the snow falls, but we'll see when the snow falls. We'll who knows. But we're here. We wanted. That's kind of the way we're trying to design life with a toddler right now, is being able to get out and about before he has to start going to school and doing those type of things.
Yeah. School until high school is still pretty freeing. You can get away with a lot.
Actually, we did right to the end, like even in high school, because
it's really the last year is the uni year, right? Like the grade 12 for them or grade 13 for us.
But you just can't pull them out for a month, but pulling them out for a week, I mean, really?
Yeah. So both of you been through the child raising, child parenting.
A 28 and a 27-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mine are.
What about you, Phil?
22, 18, and turning 17.
Okay, so you have two at home or everyone at home? I don't know what it's like nowadays.
So my 22-year-old's jumping into fourth year, and then the 18-year-old's going to uni next year, and then the 17-year-old will go through grade 12 next year. So I have two at home right now.
Cool. Yeah, we're just starting the journey, and that's one of the things I look at all the time is like, what we're older parents. Like I'm 38. It's like, for us, we have a 2-year-old, but part of me is like, well, what is education going to look like when my kid is 10? And I was like, would he get a good education given that if we just wanted to travel a bit, and he's like he's going to be an only child, or he is an only child, and so that's part of it is, I wonder what's available for like parents that kind of want to do the live abroad thing and travel a little bit. But that's good to know. Like if they're in elementary school and things like that, I want them to have friends, and I want them to have social connections and figure out what he loves, whether it's sports or whatever, like whatever it is. But at the same time, so much out there to see, and I feel like you can be well served by that as well.
Listen, you can miss a month of school, literally right to the bitter end, even into grade 12, depends how bright the kid is, and probably not miss a beat. The kid's going to get probably more stressed out than the parent, right? Because even if there's no exams, if you can do stuff in this world.
The month of June is a write-off, right?
Forget June.
Oh, for sure. Like I remember being in school where I'm like, I just want to watch videos.
Yeah, you can't do September. You can't do June. You can definitely do February. You can do mid-Jan to mid-Feb. I know it sounds crazy, but you can. I mean, at the end of the day, you always try to tell, it's hard because the kids are going to be their problem because they get so stressed out and so wound up. And it's hard to tell, an 18-year-old when you're in your 50s, it ain't going to matter shit. It's a month. It doesn't matter. Well, but to them, it is the biggest thing on the planet.
Oh, totally. I look at it and I'm just like, man, I grew up in a town of about 1,800 people, might be 2,000 people now, kind of in the middle of Manitoba, Saskatchewan, along the border. And, you just don't know what's out there. Like for jobs, just because you grew up in a small town, you have no idea. You hear like the most successful guys that leave, they're like, they're engineers.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, so math. Or like English, and no one knows why you take English, but I'm like, yeah, I know why you take English. Like now, I know why it's so important.
You learn.
Mike don't talk so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, man, what does it look like with AI? What does it look like with jobs and like market? I look at marketing and I look at all the startups that are trying to like advertise to me, like, we'll do all your creative with AI, and I'm like, well, what does this future look like then? So is it just maybe like try to teach you to be as adaptable as possible as a human being, because everything is just the pace of change for everything is nuts. It's just so crazy right now, and it's always been crazy, but it just feels like it's just like accelerating more and more and more with tech, and then climate change, and then all these like things going around the world. Like it's crazy. So I just thought maybe just being as adaptable as possible, and if you want to chase an education somewhere, go for it. I'm here to support you. But like, it's just an interesting time to think about, having a 2-year-old and what the future looks.
I don't know. I don't know how you do it, right? Because 28 years ago, when we had the first one, it was just a different set of worries, and they were all substantial worries like you're having now, but they're just a different set of worries, right? And I look at you now with a 2-year-old, and I'd be thinking, I don't know what I would do. I don't know because I don't even know what I see coming in the next 30 years. Like I don't, there's a lot of shit that I don't get. I like using AI, and I think it's really cool, but it freaks me out if AI starts doing the thinking for us and like all this fake shit. Like that drives me crazy. Like I'm old school. I still like cash. I don't like this. I don't like everything digital. I don't like everything out of my paws. Like I like shit like that, right? And I think
totally.
I don't know. We just seem to be moving like so into a non-human space where we don't like. I even watch kids. So I don't know, Phil. You watch your kids. I watch mine. Is how we communicated when we were little is so much different than how they communicate when you know what I mean. Like, and it's different. It's a different time.
Yeah.
Like you can't sound like your parents and say, "Oh, it's a different world." The technologies move things, and it's all good in the hood, but it's different.
But I think that the kids now, like I look at my kids and I think my kids are smarter about branding. Like they know more, because nobody taught them how to do that. But like you talk to any kid in their teens and they have 3 social accounts, right? They have one that's for friends and they have one that's a spammy one. Yeah. And then they have one that's for external, right? And they know how to brand all 3.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so to me, feel like they are in a lot of ways equipped for what's to come, right? Because I think this is why the parts that brands struggle with, like authenticity and all of these things, it really matters now, right? Because these kids are really, they're not seeking it, they know how to find it, right? And so if they don't find you, it's because they found you and discarded you because you're not, you know what I mean? Like they have instincts we never had before, right? Because we grew up, big brands being on TV, so whatever they said went, right? So you trusted who was the loudest voice. These kids now, I think, they know better than that. They know not to trust the loudest voices.
It feels almost, that resonates with me. Like my brother and I were just going through this process right now of like, just like simplifying. Like we know that as we grow, we need to really, really clarify brand and clarify and know what it means to be authentic for the brand when we're going through just simple things. Like Donald Miller has a great series of books, and one is like Story Brand, Story Brand, building a story brand. It's great. I mean, he's an author. He wrote Blue Like Jazz. I think he wrote a book that ended up becoming what's the Masters of the Air, that series. But he's applied all of his ideas of like story, and it kind of goes back to like the Joseph Campbell, mythology kind of thing of like the hero's journey.
Yeah.
But he puts that into like branding and like how do you tell your brand story in a way that people can connect to, and you understand like they're the hero. I'm Yoda. You're Luke Skywalker. Let's go on a journey together.
That's right.
I feel like when I think back, and I'm like, obviously I didn't grow up where my grandparents grew up, but I'm like, they didn't have as many distractions. So maybe I could be totally wrong, but like it feels like they were more present, but they were okay that they tolerated these inauthentic brands, like think of Coca-Cola marketing, like the lifestyle kind of thing, and it's all kind of baloney.
Yeah.
But then now it's kind of like almost flip side where I line up and I'm watching 10 people in the coffee line, and only one of them is not looking down at his phone.
Right.
But there's always, but there's also at the same time, the flip side, there's this understanding of what's authentic, because I don't know. I don't know why. Maybe it's like, because are we more connected? Are we less connected? Or why is it that maybe it's just that we're so overserved as like a marketed to generation of people that we just know what's authentic and what's fake, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's all of it. I think it's the inflection of tone. It's funny, like Kenny and I run, we're part of a group that runs a tea business, right? And on the tea business, when we started looking at social media for the tea business, we realized that like the people that drink our teas are in their 20s, right? And immediately it was like, yeah, so we've got to figure that out, right? And I'm the marketing guy, but figuring it out means not trying to be a 24-year-old or a 20, like it's not possible, right? I'm double that age. Do you know what I mean? It's just not possible. So it's figuring out how do you find someone who reflects the voice of someone that you want, right? Because they know it. Like it's really funny how they know, but when they look at posts, and I look at the way my kids sort through posts, they know what's real and what's not real, right? Like it's a real digital skill that we don't have. Like,
didn't have to have it though.
Yeah.
The hell did I care? I had 6 channels of TV to watch. What do I give a shit? I didn't care. You know what?
We had TV when you were growing up.
We were one of the first ones on the block that had color TV. Like it was 1974 or 75.
Oh, I remember like the
right?
fold out TV dinner trays, sitting 100%. On a squeaky old couch with my grandpa watching Hulk Hogan and watching wrestling, and that was it. That was like, and once it was over, it was done. Go and but I don't. It's one of those things where like I sit and I think, am I becoming my parents in that, or like an old person that I'm just complaining about everything now? Because I don't
part of it's
funny. Get comfortable with it.
At the same time, I'm just getting used to it, I guess. The grays are showing up, and I'm just like, one more gray is like one more complaint. One more complaint. Yeah, back in the day when there's no cell phones, remember razors, like Motorola Razor? That was the height of style. I was thinking like, I think everyone's so clued in too at the same time. But I listened to a TED Talk. I forget who it was, but there's just the idea of like people maybe our age and older being like, this generation doesn't want to work hard and they're lazy and there's this and this and this. And the guy was like, well, let's put it into perspective. They're never going to be able to afford a house. They can't afford groceries. They can't afford anything. And there's not really any hope for their future because climate change and all this stuff. So would you work hard given that you weren't guaranteed the same life as your parents? And I thought, oh man, like that resonated with me because that's kind of like for me, for like Freshfield, that's like my call to action with like the brand. I'm just trying to create something that other brands can mimic, right? It's like, it's 10 cents more for a plant-based bottle. Get rid of fossil fuels in your bottle, in your packaging.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations at trade shows with people saying, there's no way I'm not changing for 10 cents a bottle. I'm just using this virgin plastic. And I'm like, this is the attitudes we're dealing with then. So like, if you look at this whole story brand thing, like who's the villain of the story? Is it climate change or is it these guys that are refusing to change? So what do I need to do? I know my consumer's already educated. So is it our job together just to go eat these people's lunch and like compete in a marketplace? And maybe that's the wonderful part about capitalism is that I can. And it costs me 10 cents more per bottle. Maybe I'm a little bit more expensive, but you know, brands like this have proven that people want to pay more and will pay more for the lines with them.
I think you just have to just do what you do you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make the change, you have to be sort of the agent of change. Don't wait for other people to do it. You've got to lead it. 10 cents a bottle more. If someone doesn't want it, well, don't buy it. Like
but I think the bridge between the two of you is don't buy it now, and that's fine, right? So you know, the same people that Michael you're talking about are the same people who talk about climate change but leave the car idling
exactly,
you know, at the curb, and you're kind of going, dude, you're going to be there 15 minutes. Just turn the car off, right? It's a small, simple, yet nobody does it, right? And you kind of go, but I'm going to get you in the end, right? Because what's going to happen is I'm going to sell so many of these bottles at 10 cents more a bottle until you get to a point where it's, you know, you're really going to beat someone into a submission, right? Which is, you know, in a lot of ways what Patagonia is doing, right? Is you know, because this is an audio podcast, so Michael's wearing a Patagonia shirt and he was pointing at it, which nobody could see. That's
audio,
all right.
I didn't know if it's video audio. Okay, sure. Now I know.
That's our job, you know, because
we like the video because we just like to see you.
Brand of like coffee I'm drinking and everything. No, it's Matchstick and it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know.
On this note, we should do an intro because we're
20 minutes in.
20 minutes in. So we have Michael Mazur on, and Michael and his team won CHFA Launchpad not very long ago. We watched him put together a great pitch on the show, and so we asked him to come back. These guys, they have just a great. You've heard kind of Michael talk about it a little bit already, and then if you saw the Fast Thought, you know that they're kind of building something really cool, you know, and so I think you know, having Michael back to talk about you know, what they're doing is kind of amazing. So Freshfield is what it's called, right, Michael? And I'll kind of let you go through it, but we're super happy to have you back and excited to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Well, it's nice to see you guys again, and we're stoked on the win. So, like, thank you. That was a 2-minute pitch, and that's so difficult to try to tell the story of something so meaningful to me in 2 minutes. And you know, Kenny was on stage, and I remember there's like 30 seconds left, and I had like 3 slides left, and I just said to everybody, "You know how to read. Here's the last 2 slides."
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, we're Freshfield. Freshfield is kind of borrowing by actually total accident, borrowing the same kind of like approach that Patagonia had to their naming. Patagonia obviously being like a massive protected area now in South America, and Freshfield actually is a Freshfield, the ice fields in the Albertan Rockies. And so there's a glacier there that has been melting quite rapidly for a while. And so Freshfield is kind of, for us internally, for people who don't know Freshfield ice fields, Freshfield Glacier and that whole area, because who would? It's our call to action. It's kind of like, for us, it's like, hey, the time is ticking. let's get to work and build brand and products that radically lower people's impact, and at the same time, as a brand and with our customers, go to bat up against some of the biggest issues we have facing us today, which are, pretty massive issues. Actually, talking about climate change and plastic pollution, and just generally on the consumer level too, just for people that are our customers, and just people in general feeling kind of hopeless and feeling like they have no power or ability to create change or feel good about themselves, that they're making a difference with regards to plastic pollution, climate change. We can just kind of call it the eco crisis in a bucket. So Freshfield exists as a active nutrition brand. We create omegas. That's our main thing, is algae-based omegas. We call them fish oil replacements. We have protein powder. We have our B12, so sort of your standards for people that do plant-based vegan diets. But we're also, with our ocean saving omega, trying to set a new standard for products that work for everybody. So you don't need to be a vegan to take ocean saving omega. You just need omega-3s, because the idea behind ocean saving omega is, hey, if you're taking fish oil, here's something that is the exact same as far as specifications go, and it's like within 10% of the price. And if you are aware of the problems out there that I'm aware of, and if you care, which most people do, then here's this amazing alternative. And so that's us in a nutshell. We try to make it easy for people to feel good about themselves, because we're all busy just trying to make it to the end of the day and to the end of the week. And so we can bring something to the market and bring something as a brand forward that helps people feel connected, and that they're getting the nutrition they need to go further and fuel their bodies, and also to contribute positively to the eco crisis. Then we've done our jobs.
I like it.
I like it a lot.
I liked it from the get-go. I really did, because I just thought it was just, it's just, if you think about, I mean, what are people taking fish oils for? It's not because you're not taking fish oils because you want to take a fish oil. You're taking a fish oil because it's a good source of omega-3.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was really it. It wasn't because it was a fish. Could have been a tree. It could have been a root. It could have been whatever. As long as it's a good source of omega-3, and you get, whatever requirements you would get out of it, you're good to go. What we both really liked about yours, I just like the fact that what you're delivering is what everything else has. You're just doing it in a much more thoughtful way and a cleaner way, right? Every fish in the ocean, they say now, pretty much has some microplastics in them, right?
Yes.
So everything, right? If you can grow or make this omega-3 in a controlled, contained environment, to me, the animal part is this is me speaking. I'm indifferent. I don't care if it comes from an animal or if it came from a plant. The plant's awesome. I love the cleanliness of it. I like the whole thing. But that's what I think, to me, is the part that I really like. And I don't care if you're vegan or not. I don't care if it comes from an animal or not per se. I just like the fact that whatever you've done is just clean. It's a really cool process, and you're giving me exactly what I would have taken, just in a better way.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Really terrible the rest of it, in this sense.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's different. It is very different from your Beyond Meats and Impossible Foods and those kind of things that are trying to emulate.
You're trying to be something
meat.
you're not.
And for us, it's like we're trying to just be DHA, omega-3, those kind of that, and that doesn't have the taste and texture. It's in a capsule. And so if we can find other sources that aren't fish, and like in my presentation, I showed like peak fish, like talk about peak oil, peak fish is 2006. So if you think of the amount of technology and effort that's going into harvesting fish since 2006, and our harvests are still going down, that shows the ocean is in a bad way right now. Like harvests are coming down year after year after year, despite fleets growing, despite efforts growing, despite these countries that are supposed to follow international, like this maritime law, still going into these protected zones and fishing. And harvest is going down. So this is like a direct solution for this problem.
Totally.
And there's so many other things attached to that. And I keep mentioning to anyone I can that listen to the Outlaw Ocean podcast, listen to Commerce Life first, then go listen
Thank
to
you,
Outlaw
sir.
Ocean.
Good
Ian
boy.
Urbina is a wonderful storyteller and an amazing investigative journalist. I don't know if he's won a Pulitzer, or any kind of awards on that end, but he should. He talks about some of these issues that you never think would touch home. I'll just give one example of one of his podcasts talks about these fishing vessels and slavery on ships, on modern fishing fleets. And one of the things is like, let's say I'm a young guy in Indonesia and I get married and I need a loan because I want to buy a house for my wife and my upcoming family. I am going to go take a loan from a fishing ship. I'm going to go work it off. And sometimes a lot of these guys don't come home. They go on the boat a couple years. And I listen to the podcast, like there's examples of them being shackled to the ship because they're trying to escape and they don't hit shore for 2 years. You don't think this hits home until, a good example is I was sitting down with my father-in-law, who is from Devon, Alberta, just outside Edmonton. And he said, I'm working with this guy. He's Indonesian, and he just is very, very quiet. And I've worked with him for a couple of years. He works with cattle. And he finally started hearing his story. And he said, did you know that he was on a fishing ship for 2 years? And he told me he didn't leave the ship. Yeah. And he was off the coast of Japan. He was 4 or 5 miles away. And him and 3 buddies jumped into the water and swam to shore. And I said, my father-in-law's name is Dale. I said, Dale, that's slavery. Yeah. Those guys, the person that you're working with was a modern day slave. And these are boats that are getting the fish that we eat and some of the fish that we turn into fish oil. And there's no way of tracing it back to the product. Nope. It's cleaned up. We don't know. And so it's just those things that it's like, people get mad sometimes at businesses. I mean, we can talk about Loblaws later if you guys want to, about that and tackle that whole thing.
We're going to do it after this podcast anyway.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. But it's this thing of I don't need to make a product more expensive to solve the problem. I just need to find the alternative and make it the alternative. And that's what we're trying to do here is hey, you guys want to stop slavery on boats? Let's just end the demand for what those boats are out fishing then. Let's just end that. Because
that's everything, Michael. That's how the whole, if you want to stop sweatshops in other countries making clothing, well, stop buying that clothing. Pick the country it comes from, and don't piss and moan if you pay $1 or $2 more, because the $1 or $2 or less is what you're fueling indirectly then, or directly, I guess, at that point, because if you make the purchase, you are fueling that. Yeah. I hate to tell you, if you pay the $1 or $2 more and hopefully buy it from a facility or a country that has better rules for engagement with their employees. Or
I think the other thing we have to fix in here is that it isn't, because the truth is it isn't $1 or $2 more. It never has been. It never was, right? And where I'm going with this is I think that what you're talking about being able to do that costs you 10 cents more a bottle, for example, is actually miraculous, right? Because what we already know about sustainable, goals and all this stuff is everyone goes down the sustainable packaging route and all these sort of things. And as soon as you start doing it, you realize it's not 10 cents a bottle usually. Usually it's 50, 60, 80 cents, right? And that translates to 3 times that amount. So it's $2-3 more for a consumer. So it's not a couple of bucks more. It's usually 30 to 40% more, right? Yeah. And so, as consumers, we economically we live such a great life that nobody really wants to acknowledge that. Holy shit, this stuff costs us a lot more if we want to live a great life and live it properly, if you will, right? And then so, I think that needs to happen so that when folks like you start showing up and going, listen, I can do this, and I can do this for 10 cents more. That's something, do you know what I mean? I think part of the gap is when you say that someone goes, I'm not paying 10 cents. Or you're like, are you on crack? If he didn't think about how to do this, you'd inevitably be paying $3 more, not 10 cents more, right? Because that was the path that we were going down, right? That is the path that we're going down. And it's still right? At $3-4 more, it's still right. It's the right thing to do, right? The fact that a t-shirt shouldn't cost you $18 and it should cost you 30 for like the right sustainable,
Mm-hmm.
that Patagonia t-shirt. If I bought the fast food version of it, it would be $18, right? But it probably cost you like 40, right? Because it's the right way to do it, right? We just, as consumers, we're so used to having 18 of these t-shirts, not 4 of them, right?
Everything's
One of them, 2 of them,
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Like we have like kind of it's not a rule, but it's just sort of like this idea in our family that like, hey, I'm gonna wear this until it's done, then I can go get a new one.
yeah.
And then this is talking about clothing, even the threads in clothes, if they're not 100% cotton, that they're not going to break down.
No.
And that stuff that doesn't get recycled, that just gets discarded. And I think to your point too, and this is one of the issues that I see is like when you start diving into running your own business, you talk about our bottles, right? Our bottles are indistinguishable from a plastic bottle. They're made from plants. They're made from excess sugar cane. They're bought fair trade from farmers in Southeast Asia. Consumers, generally, the majority of consumers aren't really going to change their habits very quickly. It's kind of like steering this giant ship with this little rudder. And I get ideas, and we get people like amazing, well-meaning customers and just people that have amazing ideas that said, this should just be in like a big giant bulk pack, or why can't we go to like a refill center and things like that? And I think those are all amazing ideas. And I think that we need to pursue that, but that's not going to happen overnight. I'm 100% supportive of putting our capsules in like, where they put the almonds in the Balkan way. Sure, but Health Canada is not going to let me do that. Like, there's no way.
No retailer's going to do it, and no consumer's going to buy it that way.
Not yet, right? Maybe in the future, but for now, even the challenge is even now, like for protein, you talk to buyers and you say, hey, I want to put this in a cardboard tube on your shelves, and they say no, it won't sell. Consumers are so used to seeing a tub, and even then, like the stand-up pouches, that's still new.
Yeah. And
so you're looking and saying, okay, well, how do we operate a business that has a radically lower impact? And I'm not using the word sustainable because I'm in line with the Patagonia guys too, like Yvon Chouinard. He's like, nothing is sustainable. There's just lower impact stuff. We're all consumers, and we're all just consuming. Yeah. Right. So how do we like lower impact packaging? So if I can reduce and eliminate fossil fuels from my supply chain, that's a step in the right direction. If I can fit that in as just a normal 150cc bottle that goes on a shelf, perfect. Because the consumer then, like going to your point of the guy that's just leaving his car idling, to that person, they're buying Omegas. And if they want to come along on that impact journey with us, all the information is available. Other than that, though, if that transaction just ends at, I'm buying a quality product, great, that's fine, because now we've lowered your carbon footprint, your plastic footprint, and your impact on the ocean ecosystems without even really knowing it.
Yeah, we accept. That's at this point, I think that has to be good enough, right? Like it has to be good enough, and then eventually people will catch up. But
eventually, we're just so set in our ways, right? Like that, like Amazon and those kind of things. If you're to put it in like weird packaging and it arrived at your door, it's too different. People like to think that they can change, but like I can't, and I got to be like totally honest with myself about that. Like it's difficult sometimes to make changes and to make these like buy something that's different on the shelf, change brands, right? Like we're up against like Vega, and like so that's a pretty big brand that people have been with for like 2 decades, that they've been buying their protein powder and stuff like that. So so it's a fun journey. It's definitely a challenge, especially navigating Amazon stuff and retail stuff and Canadian distribution and versus American distribution, which is a whole
2 different countries, buddy.
It's crazy.
Of the same size countries with very different populations.
Yes.
And that's the kicker. That's your fundamental problem. Like, they're the same size, we're about the same landmass. But
we're the size of California, population wise.
Yeah.
So you manage that logistics.
Oh yeah, totally. Like when we look and we're like, oh, like we complain about listing fees here because US for a lot of retailers non-existent.
No, you get listing fees at the distributor level because they all use distributors.
Yeah. Well, there's a great example. There's one called Pod Foods. Check them out. They're really interesting what they're doing. They're basically a consignment model that they'll charge their fee once they make the sale and push you across, and they have their key accounts they manage, and interesting things that way. But yeah, totally. It's Canada is a different monster when you're looking at like trying to serve everybody, and everyone is just spread out on this little thin layer of population.
Yeah, there's 70 miles or so, 100 kilometers from but that's what you've got. There's really, after that, really, I hate to say it, there's really not much left. There's not enough people. And then how do you service them?
Yeah.
And then you wonder, like, the models are different. There's, there was at a time, there was probably more rational reasons for a lot of the costs that were built into the Canadian system. You pay more because you don't have much choice. To get something from Vancouver to St. John's is not easy. To get a human from Vancouver to St. John's is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
To get a human from Seattle to Florida is mindlessly easy.
Yeah.
It's a different country. There's so many different issues, and it's trying to figure those out. And then people don't underappreciate is all the costs that get mucked into that model, right? And it's now we can go down the path, like you said, there's, I don't understand the boycotts, but whatever, that's a whole different argument. Is I understand what the anger is about, but understand why before you do all the bullshit that you're doing. Like, understand what is causing a lot of this game to be frustrating for people like you who are new to potentially CPG or this thing.
Sure.
It's the stuff you don't know because it's not. First off, it's not really rational. Like, it's just a really weird game.
It's a tough position to be in, being new and looking at it. And everyone feels the pinch, and you dive into it. And I understand, like, when you see Canada is so huge, and you look at the distributor models in Canada, and you think, like, yeah, it doesn't make sense for, just use like Whole Foods as an example. Like, it doesn't make sense if they have 250 different brands. If they're like, you can't order direct. It'd be nice in an ideal world, and I have my ideas of how you could make that work. Like, just like if you could figure out how to cross-dock things quickly, but like that's what a distributor exists. I can't have 250 couriers lining up at my door to restock my shelves.
I don't want 250 invoices. I don't want to pay 250 AR points.
Yeah,
I have no interest in that. I don't want to be full-time accounting.
Totally, but hey, Kenny, there's AI now, right?
Well, if AI can make the terms go faster and it can get my money faster, light it up, baby. I'm all over it.
You can make it turn faster, but you're not getting.
Until the challenge is you still have people in the way and people programming, and nobody's going to pay net 30. I don't give a shit if it's a computer or if the only way you get net 30, you got to send Vinny and Pasquale to the door. You get net 30 then. You might get net 29, but it's not a good way to do business necessarily. Yeah. It might be a business model that's a little antiquated. We shouldn't use it anymore. Maybe we should again. I don't know. Just saying.
I don't know. Just saying.
Some days you just feel like calling Vinny and say, "Listen, can you go collect?"
Before we wander too far, because we this rabbit hole is like an endless rabbit hole. I wanted to bring it back to Freshfield a little. I think
sure.
You've won an award. I think that is a pretty cool award. You're on a path. Like, tell us, like, because you've been doing this a while now. Like, on the website, if anyone goes to the website, the freshfield.life is where you go. And there's a lot of fish saved. There's a lot of humpback whale food preserved, 66,000 pounds and counting of plastic waste. What like where are you distributed now? How do people buy this stuff, and then where do you want to go from here? Because I do honestly, I could talk to you all day, and I think but I do want people to kind of,
for sure,
you won an award for being pretty cool, so I want to make sure you get a little bit of you out there before.
Sure, for sure. So we're distributed by Purity Life, and we work with Propel on the sales agency side. So they represent us in Canada. We don't, I can't remember what our last store count is. We're not in too many stores yet. I think we're just under the 100 mark right now. When we started Freshfield, we were pretty e-commerce heavy, and I would say Amazon heavy too, because it was just sort of the lowest barrier to entry for us to just get started and see if there was some demand for our products. So, our website exists as a place to buy our products. If you can't see a store near you, we have a store locator on our website that's updated every month when we get the new reports in from Purity Life. And so our goal is to be as widely distributed as possible. With that, obviously thinking about brand and product development, making sure that we have products that fit with retailers. So I don't know who your listeners are, if they're more buyers or if they're more, on the retail end or
CPG
all over.
for sure. Yeah.
yeah. So we so we have this Ocean Saving Omega that is it's an amazing product that honestly it took a lot of work, and we're just really proud of it, and we think that it's going to be something that could really change the game for the omega space. And where are we heading? We have an amazing new protein powder in development. It is 100% free of pea. I think we're a vegan brand. Everything we have is certified vegan, carbon neutral, and plastic negative. So we understand, I'll just call it straight out. A lot of the time we're paying for our sins, right? If we have something that has a little bit of plastic in it, we are making sure that we're removing double the amount of plastic in an ethical way and making sure it's processed. That's part of the one certification. The carbon neutral certification, we go and we do an audit of our entire supply chain, understand where there are emissions, and then we buy the offsets. The effort is to continually reduce our actual output and emissions, but in the meantime, while we work on that, we want to make sure we're at zero just through our partners. So our protein, it's going to be pea-free, stevia-free. We've just listened to a lot of consumers, and this is where it's nice to be online because you get more real-time feedback. And so that is going to be a 100% upcycled. I don't want to give it away just yet because I don't want people to
no trade secrets
beat us to the punch. But
yeah,
once it's launched, no peas. It's going to be 9 out of 9 essential amino acids. It's going to have a little bit of sugar, but not too much sugar. We don't want to. We think that a little bit of natural sugar is a good thing, especially for getting nutrients shuttled to your muscles. And that's going to be in a plant-based recyclable pouch, not compostable. We're still working on that, but there's 12-month shelf life on compostable stand-up pouches, which is just impossible to work with retailers with that kind of shelf life.
Yeah.
So we're stoked on that because it's going to be more price stable. Again, the whole thing is how do we build a product that's made for everybody? $69 for a jug of pea protein is too much money. And so we're trying to figure out a way to get something to people that you can take your daily protein powder and not break the bank, and also radically lower your impact on the planet. And so
is that launching imminently soon, or
it'll be ready for CHFA East? So we'll have samples ready for August. So August 2nd is when we're having samples ready.
Very cool.
That's our deadline. I don't know why it's August 2nd, but that's the day. It's not
as good a date as any.
No,
it's a date. Yeah.
So because this podcast will come out before that, is that okay for this section to be in there, or?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We like to. We're not. We're not kind of breaking news or kind of trade secrety.
I don't want to drop any trade secrets.
So we kind of want to. So when people tell us about launches or potential launches that are coming, I just like to make sure. So
yeah,
you don't call me back later and go, dude, what?
I'm protecting my sources for now. Okay. Once we're out there, the idea is, I think that it's as with the bottles, and I think I said it in the our last interview. If anyone wants to know exactly where we get those bottles from, I will give you the introduction. Or if we have enough volume, we can even look at just setting up a distributorship in Canada so people can buy this in bulk. These come from Spain. It's a long ways away. If there's enough volume here, I know that I can get them produced in Canada for us. But yeah.
What other bottles
do
they do? So your proteins and stuff like that, I'm assuming are more of a cylinder. You said you were looking at plant-based gussets, but are there cylinder type bottles with the larger 4-inch caps that would be the similar makeup of your vitamin bottles? supplement bottles?
They, because of the material, the sidewalls of that bottle are only thick enough that it works for like a 300cc bottle max. So it's not something that's on their like roadmap for development, is like a protein tub, but they do some liquid packaging. The challenge with working with PLA, like polylactic acid, is that it's a little bit more porous than like a PET.
Right.
So you just gotta be careful with your product, making sure it's dry. You might have to put, desiccant inside just to make sure that your shelf life is there. So everything with our stability testing and everything, we're at like 2 years. Some of ours tests have come out at 3 years. It's tough to make that. So that's why we're thinking of pouch. The other thing with that is like you're shipping air a lot of the time when you're
Trust
shipping.
me, I get it. Pouch is again, if you're trying to lessen impact, pouch is a much smarter way to go. It's tighter. You ship more actual volume of product as opposed to volume of air.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't
so
look
there's
as
a
nice,
lot of reasons.
but we're looking at like a flat bottom gusset, like a flat bottom that sits a little bit nicer. We can hold a little more product. I like stand-up pouches, but I also understand on the retail level, sometimes it takes up a lot of space. That
well, if you try to make a shelf stable, you can't make it 17 inches wide. It doesn't. It doesn't work, right? You need something. You need to be, which is why bottles work so well. You can get a 3-inch bottle, 8 inches tall. You can't do that in a stand-up gusset because, so you got to go wide. But you go wide. I mean, how much real estate do you think I'm going to give you?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like if you can like squeeze a little spot in for us, and I know I'm doing this with the video, pushing my hands open, squeeze a little spot. That's what we're aiming for. So
no, I like
it. That's coming out soon, and then I'll talk about it now because it'll be official by the time the podcast goes out. Is we are going to be an official partner for PADI, which is that global dive certification organization. So PADI has a nonprofit or an organization called PADI Aware. They are basically launching something called it's like an at-risk species program. So we're partnering with PADI, and we're going to be helping fund kind of like a global research, just trying to do a survey of all the animal life in the ocean and make sure that it's documented so that we can make better decisions about policy. So this is something that we are working with as one of their main sponsors. Along with that, we're going to be doing a webinar program or like a web series with them where we bring in people to talk about ocean health and ocean vitality and ways that we can help improve it. So that's something we're really, really excited about, is putting our money where our mouth is. It's not only creating this product, but we're working directly with people that, like with divers around the world, that just like, once you spend some time in the ocean, you can't help but want to protect it because it's so beautiful. So that's something that we're working on and will be properly announced by the time this goes live. So that's something I'm happy to share as well. Cool. Like, we're super excited about that. Really and we're going to be doing some cool things with them.
When you do that, will you please ping us back and we'll bring you back on for
love
just
to hear that
15-minute, just like we did the fast thought for you.
Yeah, for sure.
So that way people can kind of understand it a little bit more. It's always good to watch something and then be able to read about it as well. So yeah,
for sure, we can do that. I don't know what else to share really on that side where we're heading. We're just building brand and doing our best to be I guess
a responsible citizen of Earth, I think is what
compassionate capitalists, I guess.
Yeah.
In that way.
Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot.
No, you're making me think now, because I think maybe we may want to ask for deets on where you're on your packaging contacts.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, so the packaging side, we are working with on the pouches, we're working with grounded packaging. I know that there's certain manufacturers we can source more directly from, but grounded has all the certifications in place, all the impact information on the packaging. I really like their approach. They're really honest about what works and what doesn't. You know, when you say like, I want a compostable pouch and I want it, you know, for my protein powder, they'll just tell you like, dude, that won't work because it's too porous and the seals won't hold up to anything over 500 grams. But it might be amazing for tea because if you have a 1-year shelf life and you're moving things through fast, great. The other organization we work with, the business we work with, is called HEIS, H-E-I-S, Global, out of Spain. And they're the ones that manufacture our bottles for us. And they're great to work with. And again, the challenges with these things is now you're working with not only a shelf life for the product inside, you're working with a shelf life for the bottle itself.
Right.
Because it will break down. If it just sits on a shelf, it will start breaking down. In like 10 years, it'll be gone, which is super cool. And then we have some images we're going to put on our website later about showing the actual compost growing wheat, which is pretty cool.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I just opened up both of those for Phil and I.
Yeah.
I
can see him. He's doing the thinking thing. That's his thinking.
That's his thinking thing.
It's because, I mean, again, you know, I mean, like we said before, like our product isn't going to save the world from a health angle per se. It's an indulgent, and we don't hide from it. We try to keep the ingredients as clean as possible, you know, organic, non-GMO. Like we really try to do that part.
Yeah.
It's the packaging that's always been the challenge. Porous, when you have dry mixes, isn't great, especially in cities like Vancouver, humidity's high. You can't have in 3 months this rock. It ain't gonna work, right? And I don't like Jessica. I don't like. I mean, I understand the I just don't like. I don't always feel like when I see that pouch in anything, it's like
yeah.
Right, that's where I go. That's me right away. I don't like this. I don't want this thing in there. I mean, this seems so wrong.
Yeah. So those packages are great. The PLA, I mean, with anything, there's challenges, but I really like the folks at Grounded Packaging. They have lots of different options. They have PCR, which is sort of, you know, not surprisingly, PCR, like 100% PCR pouches. The most impact as far as like fossil fuel reductions, because you're recycling. The only challenge is you're still, you know, hoping that this ends up. Well, the end of life for those is it does end up in a landfill. Can't be recycled the second time. So that's just these interesting things when you're thinking about packaging. That's just such a rabbit hole to go down. Is, can it be recycled? No. Is it massive impact on the front end? Yes. But it's just interesting because only 9% of plastic gets recycled anyway. So
yeah, we learned that, Phil, on another podcast that
made us sad.
Yeah, that just made us down sad.
Yeah,
but that's okay. I mean, it's like anything. I mean, if again, I think what we were all trying to do is just do better. I mean, I'll be able to save everything on the first go, but I think baby steps now. I think we need to do better than baby steps. Yeah. But bottom line is you got to move at the pace that you got to move, right?
Well, for sure. I think going to one of your points, Kenny, you're mentioning, you know, if you don't like it, just don't buy it. And I'm thinking that's one of the things my brother and I talk about a lot is businesses. I can use like Pepsi as an example. They put the onus on people by putting like just recycle me on the bottle.
I know.
Right. And you look at that and I see like, I think it's at the airport, even you go and there's like this big sign that's talking about like how eco-friendly they are because it's like they have like a recycling like box right next to the machine. And we're like, why are companies putting the onus on the customers to make the right decisions? We're already tired and busy enough. It's so, you know, on the recycling end, it's like I said before, Freshfield, as entrepreneurs, we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Feel good about yourself. Like we want you to join us on our journey if you want to go deep with us. But if you don't, I just want to make it simple for you. Like our bottles will compost to nothing. Our omega-3s do not harm any fish. They do the opposite. They're helping contribute to like a more healthy ecosystems in the ocean. So it's like, how can we remove that burden from your shoulders? And then at the same time,
the only way it's going to get done, my friend, is if companies do it. You know, the challenges we have in our system of how we do things, you know, first off, companies aren't people. It's not an entity, it's not a living entity, it's not a person.
Yeah.
So it has no feelings. And a company is really set up just to provide wealth to shareholder. So quite frankly, the less complicated and the more wealth is the way it goes, right? And to your point, it shouldn't be the responsibility of the consumer, but the line ends at where money comes out of the pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, it still has to be someone at the end saying, yeah, I'll make this decision. Now, if we're all tired and exhausted and we don't want to make the decision, then we have to rely on companies like you and hopefully others that will make it easier for us to make that decision. The challenge is these big guys are the ones that own most of the shelf space and have most of the voice. Having a recycle bin next to virgin plastic bottles is fucking stupid. I don't really care. You can shove it up your ass for all I care at that point. What have you done for me? Nothing. Like nothing. You've made me, I'm now contributing even more problems because we learned that if only 9% get recycled, the other 91 just ended it back and, there's no win on it. And I don't know why they don't take the lead. They can. They've got the size. They've got the economies of scale. It's not going to, if it costs you 10 cents, it costs them 2. Is it really going to be impacted at the end of the day on the price of the product? Nah.
That's the challenge is like, as a brand, it just takes I think it takes so much more digging deep into making the tougher decisions that might not be popular off the get-go, but are the right decision. And I think for us, like the PLA bottle was one of those decisions where we had a big buyer push back and say, we don't want these because they're going to end up in a landfill. Are you willing to go to PCR, like 100% post-consumer recycled? And I had to push back and I said, we're not. And the reason we're not is because 91% of all the plastic on your shelves in your warehouse and in your stores is ending up in the same landfill. Our product is recyclable. So there's still, 9% of it's going to get recycled. And that gets turned into filament, for instance, for 3D printers. Pretty cool.
Cool.
But if it ends up in a landfill, it's gone in 10 years, 20 years, whatever. It depends on the environment. But it was an unpopular choice, and it's unpopular still with a lot of companies that either aren't educated enough or just are moving, in my opinion, way too slowly. But that's because they're just so big.
Now you're talking on the buying side, as
on the buying side, yeah.
See, as a retailer, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be your decision in that sense. Anyway, what you can decide is, I know my consumer, let's say I can show you data. My consumer doesn't want to pay more than $9.99 for an Omega. Let's say that's the story. Then you've got a valid story. But don't give me this other bullshit that your consumer wants plastic. That's horseshit. You have no clue what your consumers want. I don't care what any of them say. That's bullshit. Yeah. That is not true. I think at the end of the day, I think the beauty of you guys, your shareholders buy into your vision. It's different. You don't delineate ownership and shareholder. These big companies, there is no people per se. It is all based on a different model. It can be done. Someone's just got to have the nuts to do it. And it is not going to impact the consumer in a negative way. If you're 10 cents a bottle, buddy, honestly, it's not going to cost Coke or Pepsi or any of those companies more than a couple pennies because they have the size. What's it going to cost us at the end? A dime? So my Coke goes from 99 cents to $1.09. Really? The planet's going to shut down?
Yeah. But if you have someone who did their BBA and straight into their MBA and straight into the corporate program that sure cares about the environment, who doesn't? Maybe they do want to make that change. But the boss is saying, I need this margin. I need that 10 cents. Because 10 cents at 1 billion bottles of Coke is a lot of money. And that's the choice that they're making because they have shareholders to report to on a publicly traded exchange versus me and my brother. Yeah, exactly.
You guys look at each other, good decision, and you run. And that's
better at the end of the night. Yeah.
Anyway, change can happen. If you guys, it always takes some little people just to keep poking. And sooner or later, one of the bears will wake up and say, these guys have an idea here. We should really look at this. And then, change happens. It's just unfortunate. It's a little slow.
Oh, for sure. And I think it is the David and Goliath story in that kind of way where we know we're up against some really big players. Even being at the trade show, I was standing beside two guys that one's an advisor, one I was being introduced to. And maybe I can share the names when the recording is off. I don't know if it's necessary to share the names right now, but anyway, between them, at one point, they controlled 80% of the shelf space in Canada for supplements. And, you're looking at like billions of dollars. Kenny, I think you probably even know who I'm talking about then.
Probably.
But you're looking at like, okay, we're this small little brand. And if you wanted to like put us out like a cigarette in an ashtray,
you do it.
you do it. Right? There's things like for us, like we're as a small business, we have trademarks and we're trying to protect those trademarks. But what happens when we have someone infringing on our trademark that has in-house lawyers and big money, and it's traditionally historically pretty litigious?
Good luck. You're gonna have 4 or 5 year fight. It bleeds their petty cash and it bleeds you dry.
Yes. Yeah. So it's these things as a small business, and like talk about this commerce life. Those are some of the challenges to navigate. And we're at time, but there's so many things we could talk about. Like, for instance, like Amazon and price parity with retailers. How do we protect small businesses when Amazon is scanning my website and every other website to see what the lowest price is and making sure that they're always lowest price? Right?
And why do they need to be?
It's anti-competitive, and
it's all built in. But they'll argue they're not a retailer, so it doesn't matter, even though they behave worse than a retailer at that point, right?
Well,
it's a tough one for you because
you haven't even the other part of that is not just the price parity and the technology advantage, but also they just with the FBA program, they ship faster, cheaper than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like they're their own post office.
You
right?
cannot compete with it.
We can't.
You cannot compete.
You can't compete with that, right? Like,
yeah, and but to me, I look at that because we're working on a program. Like we're working with, again, it seems like America is usually like 2 to 5 years ahead with certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on some brand protection, IP protection, just to look and say, hey, if you're a retailer of ours, we are protecting your pricing by ensuring that anyone who's not authorized to sell our products cannot sell our products. That way we can enforce MAP. That way we can look at that and say, hey, the price of this product is $29.99, whether you're at retail or whether it's on Amazon. And that's the challenge. Is if you go into a store, even some like a mom and pop shop that's fantastically curated, it's a wonderful experience, and you look at a protein powder from a larger vegan protein company, and you look and it's $69, and then you go on Amazon and see that's $45, and you can get it in an hour delivered to your condo in downtown Vancouver. Yeah. What are you going to do?
Argue, yeah.
So I'm like, maybe do these stores need to go like record shop model where it needs to be like a community hub? But then like, how do we manage? So that's one of the things I'm trying to figure out and try to.
It's a tougher one too, right? Because in essence, you can't dictate price. You can try to dictate, but you can't price fix. Right. No. At the end of the day, the market dictates. If I want to make 1% margin, that's my business. It's not a long-term business model. I don't know, unless you're doing trillions of dollars, but Amazon did it. Remember, Amazon, even at $100 billion was only making 1%. Yeah. Most companies can't make it. The only reason you can do that is because of the scale.
Yeah.
Totally.
A 1% return sucks until the 1%'s $1 billion. $1 billion's a nice big number.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
You want $100,000 business, make $1,000 and see how long you last. It's a tough gig.
And that's the challenge I think that retailers are up against. And I'm
do something cool. Give me a reason to come and see you. You've given me a reason.
Yeah.
You're not in the ocean. You're doing it in a controlled environment. It's a clean product. It gives me exactly what I would get out of any properly made or sourced omega-3. And you've added a few upper bonuses. And you haven't screwed me in price. You did it. You made the choice. You've made it really easy for how do you argue it? It's easy. If salmon will cost me $29.99, you're going to be $32.99. Well,
Yeah.
for $3, the whole difference what you have. I mean, sure, I'll go to you. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I know that I'm following. There's SEC, filing. There's definitely complaints and antitrust stuff going on in the Amazon world, because that's like the world that we spend a lot of our time is in there. And you see a lot of the brands that you compete against on Amazon, and you see them on shelves too. And you're like, what's your approach on shelves? Because when I walk into a store and I see our little bottle lost in a wall of supplements, I'm like, this is so different. And and that's just where brand building comes in, being authentic and going back to the beginning of our conversation about authenticity and telling that story well. And if you have a favorite store, like in Vancouver with the couple of stores that list us here, it's amazing to go in and see it and to support them and want to support them. Yeah. So
anyway, that's a whole different podcast. We'll see where that one goes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious.
You should come back.
Anytime.
We could do this.
Anytime
you want.
Oh, for sure.
Anytime.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know, like, there's pick a subject and we can go for an hour on it, because I think like the Amazon thing is a big one. I think like on the retailers, for distributors, and for brands, because I hear a lot of, when I talk to our sales agency, they said, oh, we have a lot of brands that like Amazon's on their strategic roadmap, and I'm like, they should have been there yesterday, because right now I can look them up and I can see that there's 5 different people selling their brand on Amazon.
Yeah, they're already there, just so they're clear.
You're not going to be able to remove them.
Nope.
And so you need to be there now.
Yep.
And you need to be controlling that narrative. And it's just like, this is where it gets really complicated.
As best you can.
Yeah.
So we should do that. We could do the Amazon, because if Google's going to be in trouble with their search engine, I'm dying to see what Amazon search engine looks like. I wonder if government sees that same, except one guy actually closes the transaction.
Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting. And I know with our I want to see if we can get something set up either at CHFA or just as a webinar through CHFA to talk about Amazon. How do we operate retail distribution and as brands?
I'm sure
in the Amazon world.
Love that. I'm sure they would love it, actually.
Yeah, because there are ways to protect your interests, right? Because it's not protecting your interests either. It's protecting the consumer. It's protecting retailers. It's ensuring like brand value is not diluted by having people dump your product into the marketplace. It's important in that way. So yeah, I think that there's lots to go through. I think that's one of them for sure. We go through packaging. I like, if you guys are looking for guests too, like even they're like our IP lawyer, or like I know like
you send guests our way, just send. Don't even
one of our advisors. He's really well spoken. If he has some time, it'd be a great guy to chat with. His name is Don Chisholm. He's the founder of Dossier Creative, along with his wife Rana. And he was there early on at the early days of Mike's Hard Lemonade, early days of Vega, early days of like Little Potato Company when they exploded. And so he's got lots of amazing stories, and he's a packaging genius as well. And I'm sure would have some really neat stories to tell.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Send him our way. We'd love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Before we go, so if people want to find you, they can go to
Freshfield.life.
Freshfield.life. And
there's a store locator on there if you're looking to buy locally, which hopefully we have something local. And if not, there's a place you can request so that we can go after those local stores and tell our story there. And we have some good information in the form of blog posts. There's some things about plastic and why we made the decision to do PLA. So freshfield.life is where we live there. Same thing, whether it's Instagram, freshfield.life, Facebook, freshfield.life, those kind of places. We're on TikTok, but we don't do a lot on TikTok. We just, tried it out. I'm too old to figure it out. So
that's why you have kids.
Yeah, I'm not going to let my 2-year-old have my phone just yet.
We tried it, and then we went,
nah, it's too much. If they want to get a hold of you because they want to pick your brain, how do they do that? LinkedIn? I'm on there once in a while. Send a message even on Instagram. Yeah. LinkedIn's probably the best one just to connect if you're on the business side and you want to connect. Looking for some advice or some ideas. Don't hand out your phone number. Don't do that here because
Everyone has it
We don't do
anyways.
Okay. All good.
Somehow.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah. Yeah, get that